Aprioria, a return to asceticism. There is a perfect place, it exists, and it can be entered, but you have to live the ascetic life. This means one must leave Babylon. Babylon epitomizes hedonism. Hedonism is parasitic. The hedonic life is perfect, but in the negative instance. Aprioria is the perfect model of a perfect system, a perfect way to live. As such, it cannot exist, but it is the model all modes of living must approximate if they are to strive towards perfection. A town, city or organization seeking to be perfect, must aspire to be ascetic, or it becomes, to some degree, hedonistic. The hedonist tends to be attracted to the Babylonian way of life. Babylon being the place of sin and evil. It serves as the perfect example of what ascetics need to distance themselves from. Babylon is where perfection is not found and cannot be found. The more we look, the more lost we become. Despite what you think, Aprioria is not too complex to understand nor hard to build. Which means that perfection is neither far away nor hard to achieve. Mankind has always been more attracted to the hedonistic side of things. We have preferred to remain true to Babylon. For the entire existence of mankind, Babylon has been our home. It takes a tremendous amount of work to live beyond asceticism, but mankind has made a lot of progress towards a purely hedonistic lifestyle. But mankind cannot keep up this level of desecration forever and survive. We treat the world like an inexhaustible resource. Soon Babylon will and must collapse, and take us with it, if we are addicted to pleasure. Otherwise, this campaign of destruction that is hedonism, will itself implode, and perfection will become our new passion. But there is no perfection in waste, and there is no perfection in anything but asceticism. Perfection is the natural order of things, because logic is natural, truth is natural, and the ascetic order is natural. It was the way things were made. The world of Babylon is a world of waste and corruption. Truth, logic and morality are all corrupted in the waste of the hedonistic Babylonian system. You have been told, and you believe, destruction is natural, destruction. People believe destruction is the result of imperfection. The only thing that can be destroyed is perfection, the perfection of the ascetic lifestyle. Imperfection is the destruction of perfection, that is all it can ever be. Destroying imperfection is like destroying destruction. There cannot be destruction unless there is perfection, and this perfection is the elimination of waste. Perfection cannot arise from imperfection, but perfection can be destroyed by a lie, even to ourselves. When we lie, we break the faith we have with each other. More importantly, we break faith with ourselves. Perfection comes through the perfection of faith. When we lose faith, we destroy perfection. But perfection is not destroyed, because it is perfection. It is our own perfection we destroy. We destroy the faith we have in ourselves, because we have betrayed our own innate purpose. We can believe or pretend to believe, that perfection is destroyed. You can believe you destroyed perfection, but all you really destroy is your own faith and that in yourself. Perfection itself is sublime and eternal. Your faith is corruptible because we can betray ourselves. This is the mystery the world struggles with. How can the good person sin? How can the perfect be harmed? How does the truth manifest a lie? Why is there evil if God exists? The questions are self-refuting. They are logically incoherent, and therefore, not valid questions. Perfection remains perfect and the good person never sins. There is no evil where God exists. The problem is your faith, or lack of it. The problem is your doubt. The problem is people become attracted to the hedonistic worldview. They want more for less. The ascetic wants to use every moment and every particle, the right way, to get every unit of use value from it. The ascetic abhors waste. But many make excuses why waste is acceptable or at least is excusable in a particular instance. This is tantamount to being converted to the dark side. An institution for the mentally ill has no insanity, in the minds of the insane. The insanity is in the minds of their caretakers. Only the healthy are aware of the insanity of others. Only those who have perfect faith, understands the lack of faith in others. It is only when you become an ascetic do you understand the lack of faith that accompanies hedonism. We do not destroy perfection when we waste, we do not eliminate justice when we do an injustice. The perfect example still exists, which is why we know we have erred and fell short of the ideal. When we left Eden, we did not destroy Eden, we forgot what it was like to live there. When we lose our love, love remains the ideal, but we betrayed it and lost it, and no longer know how to find it. What this really means: we lost our faith and so created our own version of what is right and what is wrong. Aprioria is not Eden, it is the conceptualization of it, it is a recreation of it in the context of earth. We lost that faith that allowed us to live in harmony with God. Eden had God as a presence. Aprioria is based on the presence of Christ. I do not think we can go back to Eden, its way of living is lost to us. We cannot recreate the faith that would bring us back into the presence of God, but we can build the church. We can go to the home Christ prepared for us. Aprioria is perfection of faith, in the face of sin, through the church. It is a perfect free market because the free market is asceticism, or a mundane understanding of what asceticism is. To have a free market is to be an ascetic. But a free market is possible only in terms of equity. That is, the unit of exchange must be nothing more than a bookkeeping unit, a means by which accounts can be kept. We cannot have a free market based on asset accounting, some call it double-entry bookkeeping. This link of asceticism with cash accounting in the free market is the fact mankind never figured out. Aprioria assumes and is predicated on the existence of God. If God exists, and we assume He does, He is necessarily the owner of all things physical. God owns the assets of the world, that includes the land, water and air and all the life on the planet. If we work for Him, indirectly through the church, waste is not an option. If waste is not an option, then the only alternative is asceticism, anything other than this is a hedonistic orgy of waste. The task for man is to be perfected in faith. This has a real-life application. We need to be perfect in our use of what we have been given. We make the best use of what we have without tolerating waste. Aprioria is designed to perfect man, or to be the vehicle through which perfection can be approached, if not achieved. To be perfect as God is perfect is a challenge, not a gift. The challenge is to use what we have in a way that permits no waste. This is how we give glory to God. The church has been instituted to act on behalf of God. That is its function. Its purpose is to bind people to itself, these are the ones bound in heaven. This is not as complicated or as confusing as it might at first sound. We have to show responsibility for what belongs to God. The church acts as God's representative on earth. First of all, the earth is God's. Therefore, when we take ownership of the earth, we are taking from God what is God's. This is okay, if we take what we need for personal use, that is permitted. If we take what is God's as our own, it ought to be used. We are not the measure of good and evil. That is the role of the church. The church is the representative of God on earth and is charged with ensuring what belongs to God is used to His glory. The earth was created to be both a home and a place where we can work out our salvation. Remember, the church exists to bind on earth those who are to be bound in heaven. But those being bound are also part of the church, so this is a two-way process. We are binding others as they bind us. Again, we will not understand this until we understand the binding is us finding a way to reduce waste and bring glory to God by the auspicious use of what we have been entrusted with. It takes a market to enable asceticism. We cannot use things as they were meant to be used by being a hermit or participant in a subsistence economy. Indeed, what we do to bind others to us, is what develops us as Christians. There is a concrete or objective component to this. It is not just a matter of being nice to one another or of socializing. We have to reduce resource use relative to the value generated. We need to produce civilization. Binding is a process with parameters. We cannot bind to parasites and parasites cannot bind to us, in a way that will help us to bind to others. In fact, the objective of a parasite is to remove all possibility that the person being exploited will have anything to give to anyone else. They are skimming off everything they can get, hopefully without killing the host. There is a spiritual component to the activities of a parasite, because the parasite wants us to lose faith in others and in ourselves. This weakens the bounds that bind us together. This is the original divide and conquer. We find parasitic personalities will isolate their victims from anyone who might support them. Binding on earth is then a process of developing a sense of faith in each other. But as said, this is a process. Binding is a systematic reduction in parasitism, though free market activity. It is also an intensification of specialization. In economic terms, the free market is developed and expanded. We have faith in others who prove they have a genuine ability to help us. Our economic interdependence is what binds us to each other, along with the wealth we generate together. The free market has zero government regulation. The market is not free if it is being exploited for political ends. The government is needed relative to the lack of faith we have in each other. If there is no exploitation, the state is not needed. If the exploitation is extensive and deep-rooted, there will be communism, if a little less, fascism, and if still less, capitalism. Capitalism moves up and down the scale depending on how much or little asceticism there is, and therefore, how much or little regulation there is. The less ascetic the people, the more regulated. But how do we remove the state out of the free market? How do we replace it with asceticism? If asked in this way, the question seems impossible to answer, as the free market is not a thing. The free market is an abstraction, it is a reference to supply and demand. The free market refers to a form of accounting called cash accounting, or two-column accounting. If implemented fully, it pushes the system towards asceticism. The free market is the same as cash accounting, and the regulated market is accounting with liabilities and capital categories. The liability column tells us what assets belong to some other account, and the capital category tells us what assets belong to the owner's account. Cash accounting pushes us towards asceticism, double-entry bookkeeping is the door to hedonism. No one thinks this way, but you will find it to be true. With double-entry bookkeeping, the professional bureaucracy is made possible. What no one tells us is that these two categories of assets and liabilities, as used in accounting, are demonic and illegitimate. The private owner is in a constant struggle against the state for his or her rightful share, while the state pushes back, claiming the social needs of its constituents have the higher priority. Both are making illegitimate claims against God's creation. No one looks at what these claims to the natural world are based on. Because it is not about who has the greater right to the earth, it is who has a right to claim any of the natural world. No man has this right, and no government, all of the earth and the universe even, belongs to God. Not create nature. Why do we think we have a claim on any of it? Before you ask why the other side of the political divide is wrong, ask why your side has any claim on what was created by God. Aprioria is a charity that promotes asceticism as a charitable option. We help people reduce waste. We believe apologetics leads to asceticism. The charity holds the assets given to the church for the work of God, in trust. Our goal is always to reduce waste. Ascetics who work for the charity earn a living wage. There are no unpaid volunteers. The charity work is overseen but by 12 limited councils. Each council is over a sector. The chairperson of each sector's limited council serves on the General Council. The General Council serves an oversight function for intra-sector issues. When resources need to be shifted from one sector to the other, the General Council serves as the vehicle through which the transfer is performed. The General Council administrates the Church's general ledger. The mission of the General Council is to balance two accounts of the 12 sectors to increase the binding between members, that is tantamount to increasing the economic activity of the charity. The Limited Council operate the 12 business sectors. Their mission is to increase the value of the individual sector. Everyone has a voice in the General Council. This is the voice of the congregation and the representatives of the various political jurisdictions. If someone needs a home built or a road constructed, this is ordered through the General Council. The General Council administrates the intra-sector transfers. The construction sector assigns resources to projects to maximize the productivity of the construction sector. Charity is not about how much one can skim off the market. We aim to increase the level of economic activity. We ought to live without trying to be grandiose. Elegance is one thing, brogue grandeur or ostentatious embellishment are something else. Charity is not just about what we give to others, it is what we do not. Charity could be considered a synonym of asceticism. Charity requires asceticism, both on the part of the charitable person and indeed, on the recipient. If we are doing charity, there is no room for waste. Apriorian is then a charity grounded in asceticism and the ascetic life.